Here's what you actually need to do. Starting with the English section, as soon as the exam begins, go ahead and jump to around question 15, somewhere in the middle, where it switches to writing. And you know you're there as soon as it starts talking about conventions of standard English. The reason you want to do this is that those writing questions are going to go a lot faster. So you can get all of those points front loaded before you move into the reading questions that might take a little bit longer for you, or that you might have to end up guessing on because you run out of time. And speaking of how fast the writing questions can go, my second tip is going to be to only read one sentence for punctuation questions. In this question, for example, we would ignore this first sentence and go straight to the second sentence. And then I would notice that I could get rid of according to Gibbard. It would sound like his music often explores themes of da 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 da. And if I can get rid of it, that means it's non-essential information, which means I can use 2 commas. So my answer is going to be choice B. Sticking with the time-saving theme, my third tip is to use the odd verb out trick for verb questions. And the odd verb out trick goes a little something like this. Step 1, completely ignore the passage. Step 2, think about they and think about he or she. Step 3, connect they or he or she to your answers. They were, they have been, they are. He was. Because he is the odd verb out, only working with one answer, that is going to be my answer. And we don't even have to worry about reading the passage. The last type of writing question you're going to come across are these rhetorical synthesis questions. And my fourth English tip is to skip the notes on these guys. So here we're going to go ahead and ignore all of these notes and just focus on the goal. So let's move along where we have a little bit more room here. Much better. And the goal is to describe the exhibition that Emily Chen curated in 2017. So let's go through and eliminate. Held at something something, the 2019 exhibition. Okay, so choice A doesn't even mention it. B says, this thing, a 2017 exhibition curated by Emily Chen, featured works, so that would work. C, in both 2017 and 2019, we don't want to mention 2 years. We just want to focus on that one that she curated in 2017. And then D, while one exhibition curated, I'm not even seeing a date here, so that's out. And then our answer is going to be choice B, just like that. And if you do want an example of when you have to look at the notes, I did make an entire rhetorical synthesis video, so I'll just go ahead and check that out. When you do finally circle back to the reading questions, I want you to make a prediction. Here, this comes in super handy, and what we can do is come up with a prediction for replacing this. And what would be even better is to actually ignore this, because for words in context, you want to focus on context. So let's just play fill in the blank. So if I were filling in the blank, I would say he could not wholly refuse to, think about the possibility that it contained vital news. We go through our answer choices here. Provide amusement, no. Consider, that means think about. Host, no. Enjoy, no. And the reason that this is such an important strategy, and yeah, that's our answer, by the way, is if we were to just look at our answer choices, especially if we were just looking at entertain, all of a sudden we might get tricked, because a lot of the time entertain means provide amusement or even host, right? So be careful, make sure to fill in the blank, ignore that word, and come up with your own prediction instead. All right, now let's talk math. Tip number 1, which may not come as a surprise, is to use Desmos. Use Desmos liberally. Even on questions you already know how to do, Desmos is going to keep you from making silly mistakes, and a lot of the time it's also going to be faster. This question's a perfect example. Traditionally, we would want to set these guys equal to each other and solve for x, but we can just pull up Desmos, plug in both equations, and now we're just looking for our intersection. And our intersection is at 0, 0. So our answer is 0. Now that was just one example of what Desmos can do, but I did make an entire video dedicated to Desmos, so make sure to check that out as well. Math tip number 2 is to plug in the answer choices. If you're not sure how to approach a question, a lot of the time you can literally just put in the answer choices to see what works. Let's say this question's thrown me for a loop. I'm not quite sure what to do. Well, I can plug in my answer choices and start testing stuff out. So I'm going to plug in for choice A, 0 for x and 8 for y. We get 8 equals 5 times 3 to the 0th power minus 7. Anything to the 0th power is 1. So 5 times 1 is 5. 5 minus 7 equals negative 2, which does not equal 8. So A is out. And then actually I'm looking 0, negative 2. I know that's going to work out because I just solved for that. So my answer is choice B. Math tip number 3 is to double check the question before you move on. Pause the video and see if you can figure out what's going on with this question, but let me throw it together for you. So we do have a system of equations. I know this because we have items and we have values. We have elixir of speed, which I'll call X, and we have potion of strength, which I'll call Y. And it says that all of the potions he sold together, so all of the X plus all of the Y would equal 40 potions. And then for systems of equations, you want to have one equation that's items plus items equals total items. And then your other should be value plus value equals total value. So we attribute the value 7X for the 7 gold coins plus the value 5Y, since we had 5 gold coins for those, equals total gold coins 230. So now we have a system of equations, and we could actually jump into Desmos to finish this off as I showed you before. So if we pull up Desmos, throw these guys in real quick, zoom out and find our intersection here, and we've got an intersection of 15, 25. So X is 15, Y is 25. What's it asking us about again? Elixir of speed. Was elixir of speed X or Y? It was X, right? So we might be thinking our answer is 15, right? But it's not asking about how many elixirs of speed were sold. It's saying how much in gold coins was spent on elixir of speed. So remember, the elixir of speed were 7 each. So we would multiply that by 7, and that's going to be 105, which is actually our answer for this question. So make sure to double check your questions before you move on so you don't fall for tricks like this. Math tip number 4 is to use the geometry cheat sheet. Let's say we come across this question and we think, oh no, I don't remember what the heck radians are, or I've never even learned about radians. Well, let's pull up our cheat sheet, and sure enough, even though it's hidden, down here we see the number of degrees in arc of circle is 360, and the number of radians in an arc of a circle is 2 pi. So basically 2 pi radians equals 360 degrees. So let's set this up. If we have 7 pi over 15 radians, we can multiply that by 360 degrees for every 2 pi radians. Or if we wanted, we could think of it as 180 degrees for every pi radians. I like smaller numbers. Speaking of smaller numbers, we can simplify this a bit too, because 180 divided by 15 is 12 over 1. We can also eliminate pi because it shows up in the numerator and denominator. So we're basically just left with 7 times 12, which is 84. So our answer is 84. Now, I've heard some other tutors recommending that you memorize these equations so that you don't have to waste the few seconds it takes to pull them up. I would say do not waste your time memorizing these, since there's a cheat sheet available. Instead, I would worry about memorizing equations that are not on the cheat sheet, like the one we have to use in the next question. And speaking of the next question, my 5th math tip is going to be to not use Desmos. And I know what you're thinking. What the heck, man? You just told me to use Desmos, and yeah, you should, but it's important to know when and when you should not use Desmos. So this question looks like a nightmare. And indeed, if we tried to plug it into Desmos, we would run into a lot of trouble because we have 4 different constants, right? A, B, C, and D. So how the heck do we deal with this? Well, if you know the simple formula for product of solutions, which is C over A, this actually becomes quite easy. Now, keep in mind, C over A is in reference to AX squared plus BX plus C. So we need to identify where those components are. C is actually going to be 2AC in this case. So we would have 2AC divided by A, which is just 25 in this case, because that's going to be our coefficient for x squared. Now it says the product of the solutions is, which means it's equal to A, B, C, D. We can simplify this because AC shows up on both sides, so we can get rid of that. And now all of a sudden it's asking us the value of BD. Well, the value of BD is what's left over, right? Because there's B and D, it's 2 over 25, choice B.